fallout continues from the events of episode 1. Vanessa doubles down on her decision to punish both her sister and niece, while August tries to get her father's company together, including dealing with a blackmailer who might be the reason why her dad was in trouble and needed money before. For the last 10 months, Reggie has been blackmailed by somebody who has demanded $150,000 per month. With him dead, that burden has been passed on to August, who isn't really sure what to do about this. $150,000 is a lot of money, and as we were told in the last episode and partly in this one, the company is okay, but it needs a boost more than it needs a new liability. So with that in mind, August tries to push this off that she's not gonna pay, but then the blackmailer threatens her mother, so she decides to bring in a little bit of everybody. She brings in Dana to possibly help, Bridget and Melanie, and all this ends up becoming is they pay anyway. But now with Melanie and Bridget knowing about this financial issue, so comes Dana kind of questioning who is August loyal to. Is she more loyal to their mother Vanessa? Or is she still going to keep fighting for Bridget and Melanie despite all the drama that they bring into their household? The kind of drama that, when it comes to Vanessa, is not making her mental health any better. So with that in mind, Dana really wants to put an end to all this as soon as possible. But when it comes to Dana, don't take this as him suddenly deciding to be a team player and help August do well as president of the company. Not at all. He still undermines and undercuts her whenever he gets the chance. And even Vanessa, in a way, kind of makes it clear that, yes, your father set you to succeed him, but you only really have 6 months to impress the board. For with all that August is trying to hide, it's starting to bug her mom a little bit because it makes her feel like she's out of the loop. And yes, she's spending a lot of time in bed drinking and trying to deal with her husband having a decades-long affair, but she wants it to be very clear that while she might be going through something emotionally, maybe mentally, at the same time, don't try to play her. But it's not just August who's having issues. It's also Christian, for with him now being the head of the vineyard, he has to deal with the vineyard employees, and one of them named Otis, he sees Christian as just some kid who has a title, doesn't want to do the work, but gets to pay. And with that, he's kind of he doesn't outright talk about how insulted he is that he wasn't possibly put up for the promotion, but it's very clear that he has no problems if Christian decides to kick rocks to take on not just the task, but the money that should come with it. And because of this, Christian wants to prove himself, and you can see Yvette, being that she's trying to advise as much as she can when it comes to all the family drama, business and personal. She wants to help Christian, but unfortunately, when Yvette says step up and, really kind of foster some type of team environment, that doesn't lead to Christian working harder or trying to really learn the grapes. Instead, he buys chicken and alcohol and biscuits, which for Otis is the dumbest idea ever because they're working so they can't drink on the job. So, from what it seems, business-wise, the King's wine is not looking good at all. However, as we just kind of went into, in terms of Kings and the family, things aren't looking any better. Never mind the whole blackmail situation, never mind the whole money situation because of the business. The fact that Bridget is still kind of on the outs with Vanessa and now she's unemployed, that becomes a bigger and bigger issue that August is kind of torn about. On one hand, she sees the situation with her mother, who is definitely not thinking in the business's best interest, but at the same time, even August is having issues being in the same room with Melanie. And then when it comes to Bridget, Vanessa is very clear that she is fully for Bridget being collateral damage in this war with her sister. And when it comes to August's role in this, her loyalties are mixed. what's good for the business, what's good for her mother. Then you have Dana chiming in because with him knowing about the blackmail and everything, and then knowing that Bridget is involved, he's not happy about it. Bad enough already that he was the last to know about the family's financial issues, the last to know about August being a successor for the company's CEO position. So at this point, he's just gaining more and more leverage over August, and he's not above possibly putting it out there. In fact, his wife Rose, she's like, "What are you waiting for?" Which is why, even though Bridget is such a good asset to the company, even though Bridget is trying to show her loyalty by digging up all of Melanie's old files, which show that Reggie and Melanie have been having a long affair, that doesn't win over Vanessa. That makes things worse. That now, instead of just the possibility of Reggie cheating on her for years, decades, now she has proof through love letters that he sent to her, and Melanie sending back mixtapes. And while it's nice that Bridget wanted to try to show that, hey, I'm on your guy's side, no. Because Vanessa's spiraling even more, and with that, Dana and August are in agreement, and August delivers the news that you are not getting your job back. Maybe when this all blows over, there's a possibility, but right now, you are SOL. And for Bridget, that is such a huge blow, since she was all ready to go off on her mom, talking about how she ruined everything, yada, yada, yada. And then guess who's the only person that's her ally after all this? Melanie. But with that said, in terms of allyship, with August screwing over Bridget, now she doesn't have an ally in this fight against Dana, and even the expectations that her mother wants to deliver within 6 months. Which, by the way, 6 months is about the amount of time that August says she needs in order to launch this dessert wine she wants to do. So expect that dessert wine to be the make or break when it comes to her staying on as CEO. In terms of highlights, the first highlight for me is Rose and Dana's marriage. Yes, Rose and Dana definitely are antagonists when it comes to the show, but there's something about her supporting him, wanting better for him, and at the same time never feeling like she's less than in her position handling PR, that makes you want to like this couple. I mean, Dana does sometimes make himself hard to like, and Rose, of course, co-signing on everything her husband says, doesn't help. But them as a unit, them backing each other and really just showing that. What I think I'm trying to say is, I don't think there's ever been like two antagonists in a relationship that you ever wanted to root for more on a show like this. And it's not even like it's a political or business decision that they're together, but you can actually tell that these two people love each other. And considering one of the last scenes we see between them is Rose trying to have a baby, all I can say is that I'm here for everything that they want to do, even though I know it's going to make August's life so much harder. The second highlight is Anna Vet, and that's just because she still is a scene-stealing character who just is necessary for the show. I wouldn't say she shakes things up, but she definitely presents something, as we said in the first episode recap review, she gives us something different that isn't usually seen on dramas like this. Yes, she kind of is an outlier in a way that could raise an eyebrow, but at the same time, there's no denying that she's the only person in this family that doesn't seem overtly petty. And with her advising Christian, likely going to be that person who brings Vanessa and Melanie's mom from Paris to possibly get those two to reconcile, you can see that she's going to be the tie that binds the whole family together. And as long as she's on this show, she's going to not only do that, but deliver us funny scenes, advice, and I just hope that with her now being part of the family wine business, probably more than ever, that we don't kind of lose her as an individual as she's helping everybody get their own stuff together. The next highlight for us is just how nasty Vanessa is at this point. Whether it is giving August a timeline to get things together and show that she's worth this position that she inherited, or just how she's treating Bridget and Melanie. I appreciate that she, with the death of her husband, with the whole cheating scandal and all that, she didn't kind of collapse within herself and then became quiet and became pretty much a victim of circumstance. Instead, she became an ass that was lashing out, and you really can't blame her for it. Why have your mistress's daughter in your household making money off of your sacrifice to this family and then be okay with it? And yes, when Melanie comes to Vanessa and talks about this depression in her family and she's worried about Bridget, and Vanessa pretty much says she doesn't care if Bridget dies from suicide or not, that was a bit much. Yet, how often do you get to see a black female character talk like that and not be painted as the most evilest person on the show? You don't really get that too often. So her being so malicious in a way and owning it, yet still having this issue with her husband, that makes you understand that yes, she's being a terrible person, but she's hurting in a way that you can't really comprehend unless you've been through something like that. It brings a sort of complex character that, like you see with Dana and Rose, that you just, I don't want to say you love to hate them, but you can definitely see the nuance in their decision making, and it doesn't make it so that you can outright say that they're the bad person for what they're doing. It's just with the cards they are dealt, they're doing the best what they can with their hand. Which brings us to our last highlight for this episode, which is August on the ropes. From the start, August came in. She was rich, privileged, had her dad's ear. Pretty much her life seemed set outside of the fact that her high school sweetheart married and got with somebody else. But with Dana against her, with her mom setting timelines, with Rose kind of iffy and Christian having his own issues, and then deciding to screw over Bridget, August is now not only on her own, but she's on the ropes. Because she's fighting all these different people with all these different agendas. Some that wish to take her down, some who are just worried about the company. And it doesn't look good for her. And then when you add in this whole blackmail situation. Oh, and let's not forget that she owes Melanie money from the company. There's so much going on now that she kind of feels like an underdog. And that's something that this show definitely needed, considering all that August presented herself as in episode 1. In terms of low points, the main thing for us is just this whole blackmail thing. For I still feel that we have way too much drama going on to then add on this blackmail thing, which, yes, the blackmail was mentioned at the tail end of the last episode, but when you go through everything else that was happening, I think you can understand why the blackmail was forgotten about. And honestly, with this secretive figure who is threatening violence against the family, a part of me is, I'm trying to figure out a way that they could spin this to make it an interesting thing, but it's difficult to. There's just so much going on, so much with these characters that they have maybe, I don't know how many episodes that they currently have, maybe 10 or 12 episodes to build up, that what do we need a blackmailer for? Never mind a blackmailer who doesn't seem to have anything on the family besides they know the blueprints of the house and the vineyard, so they can get to them and possibly hurt them at any time. Which I understand is a very legit threat and something to worry about, but at the same time, I feel like with them being so mysterious, not knowing a name, not getting a face or anything, it's just too much at once still. So the last topic is an on-the-fence topic, and that just deals with Kevin and August's relationship. Off the bat, there's a need to question, when it comes to Kelvin and August, why in the world is she talking to a lawyer without having a legal representative herself? On top of that, while you can see when it comes to Rose and Dana, that's a cute relationship despite them not being for August, when it comes to Kelvin and August, I just don't see it. I mean, all it does is present that usual black woman who's very good professionally, has this very set up life, And then you look at her personal life and it's just a hot ass mess. Because let's note, Kelvin said he's separated, he didn't say he was divorced. On top of that, he has kids with his wife, soon to be ex wife Sonia, so she's always going to be part of the picture. And that and the fact that Sonia introduces herself to August and she seems rather friendly. Again, there's just this feeling that every kind of dramatic storyline that the Kings of Napa can tap into and put on screen, it's either in progress right now or it's being set up to become a main thing. And I just feel that at this time, this show is still far too new to be putting so much weight on itself, especially if it can't make sure that all of these different storylines play out in a way that doesn't make it feel that I think the main thing I'm worried about is just that these storylines just don't have a good payoff. And then once these storylines in terms of finding out who the blackmailer is, possibly a reconciliation between Vanessa and Melanie, whenever that happens, and then everything else that we've seen thus far, what will they do next? Because right now, we're at episode 2, and it still feel like they're trying to escalate things. And eventually, I fear that it's going to eventually fall off a cliff and may not ever make it back to the height it once had. Overall, I definitely feel that this last episode, even though it kind of felt like they saved the best for last, at the same time, it renewed my interest in the show. We now have multiple plot lines set up for season 2 that could be of interest, from finding out who gets casted as Charlotte, whether or not Missy decides to actually tell a story, either anonymously or her own person. You have Thaisa's new Senate run, and whether or not that'll be part of the show. Never mind Simone asking about that whole altar in the basement. We have Shauna still having to keep her secret with Jeff and keep that going, especially as Adam's murder investigation happens. We have Jessica, who died, and who knows, maybe she had some type of contingency plan for that, so now maybe Thaisa's secrets can come out and all the other secrets she might have gathered. There's just a long list of things that can come next, and while we probably won't get the answers this year, well, hopefully we can get it by the early winter of 2023.